In the last presidential campaign in 2008, when Colin Powell stopped holding his cards close to his vest and decided to make his endorsement in the presidential race between Barack Obama and John McCain that year, Colin Powell choosing Obama for his endorsement was pretty much the last thing in the world the McCain campaign needed to hear. At that point, they were already becoming a really evident long shot. The race was starting to increasingly look like it wasn't even going to be close. And the Colin Powell endorsement just took the wind right out of the McCain campaign's sails. John McCain responded to the endorsement that same day by going on Fox News and sighing that, well, it wasn't all that much of a surprise. He at least, though, was able to say that even if he did not have Colin Powell's endorsement, he did have endorsements from some other former Republican secretaries of state. So at least he had those names to offer for counterbalance. The Romney campaign's counterbalance tonight to them losing the Colin Powell endorsement this year is a whole different kind of counterbalance.
You want to call me crazy? Go to hell. Call me crazy all you want.
This morning on CBS, Republican former Secretary of State Colin Powell officially endorsed Barack Obama. So that's on one side of the race today. On the other side of the race today, well, tonight, actually, as we speak, the Romney campaign is hosting a gala fundraiser in Texas with former Vice President Dick Cheney and this guy.
Tonight, it's big boy time. Tonight is not an episode that you casually watch and take out of context. Tonight, you must consider the unthinkable. This is the Jesus side. This is what's in the book of Revelation of the Antichrist. I did this about 5 years ago and about wet my pants when I finished the research on it. We have to take a break. We're going to come back and wait until you get to the mark of the beast. Next.
Capitalists. If you think that you can play footsies with these people, you're wrong. They will come for you and drag you into the streets and kill you. They will do it. They're not messing around.
You'll never guess how many pillars the president is going to focus on tonight. Yeah. 5. The 5 pillars. I mean, you're upsetting the bunny, really. Has anybody ever heard of the 5 pillars of Islam?
Easy with the live bunny. What did the bunny do to deserve that? I always wondered. I have to say, though, my other favorite Glenn Beck moment from this sort of moment in American politics was when he said that protests against Republicans stripping union rights in Wisconsin, those protests were obviously going to be the start of a nationwide and then worldwide insurrection. And then, of course, possibly the end of the world.
The story that everybody should be focused on today is not the Kardashians or anything else. The one that should be on everybody's mind is happening today in Wisconsin. It's about the people looking to create chaos on the backs of the worker when the world's focus is on Egypt. The financial pressure that is coming is going to mean that demonstrations, protests, God forbid riots, and maybe worse, are coming. How do you know when you're entering the last days? Well, it's, quite honestly, it's almost like how do you know when Jesus is coming back? It's 7 years of nightmare, and it's just growing problems. It's chaos, and it's war.
That's who's hosting the Mitt Romney campaign gala fundraiser tonight in Texas, along with Dick Cheney. They will be joined by Mr. Romney's son, Josh Romney, who will be attending in person, as will the chairman of the Republican Party, the nationwide one. And they will be getting an exclusive video address from the vice presidential nominee of the Republican Party, Paul Ryan. You know, it's interesting. In this last couple of weeks of the campaign, as the Republican side has been trying to win over undecided voters in the swing states by trying to make Mr. Romney seem as moderate as possible, in order to do that, they have sort of submarined Paul Ryan a little bit. I mean, they are putting him out at some events, but not very many. Yesterday, for example, on the campaign trail, Paul Ryan had exactly one event. It was a policy speech. It was a policy speech that they timed to take place at the exact same time as a big Mitt Romney event in Nevada. The Romney campaign, at least online, did not go out of their way to provide the video of the Paul Ryan event or even any of the highlights. And again, that was the only public event that Paul Ryan had yesterday. But we are now learning that while they are keeping Paul Ryan more out of public view than you would think at this point in the campaign, they are having Paul Ryan appear at all sorts of fundraisers these days. Fundraisers this late in the game. And they are fundraisers in states that are definitely not swing states. So it's not just this Texas fundraiser tonight with Glenn Beck and Dick Cheney. Last night, Paul Ryan was in Georgia. This morning, before the Glenn Beck event, Paul Ryan was at another event in Texas, not a swing state. Tomorrow, he's scheduled to do 2 separate fundraisers in South Carolina. And then tomorrow afternoon, he's heading off to the great swing state of Alabama. He's going to be in Huntsville, Alabama. This is not a persuade the undecided voters kind of schedule. This is a where can we stash this guy where we're sure he's not going to get any hard questions schedule. Alabama sounds good. How about Texas? Can we get him into a Glenn Beck, Dick Cheney event? Is Glenn Beck still around? They're not keeping him out of the swing states entirely. Paul Ryan has 2 events in Virginia today. But when they do have him in a place like Cleveland, where he gave this all but secret policy speech yesterday, they have taken care to put him in an environment in which he's taking precisely 0 questions. I mean, at that Cleveland policy speech, he's walking up to the microphone, turning the microphone on, giving a scripted speech, turning the microphone off, and leaving. Get me to Georgia, stat! And you can see from what the rest of the Romney campaign is going through right now why they would be taking pains to keep Paul Ryan on a schedule like this.
All right, now come right to there. You up there, you wishing Senator Maddow to pull that out? Which way are we going?
That was Mitt Romney at a diner in Cincinnati this morning. Governor, do you wish that Senator Murdoch would pull that ad? Romney says, let's see, which way are we going? Ostentatiously not answering questions, pretending not even to hear questions about the latest Republican U.S. Senate candidate who has decided to opine on the nuances of rape, God, biology, and what he would like to have the government force rape victims to do against their will. Mitt Romney ignored 3 separate reporters who asked him about Richard Murdoch at that diner this morning. He then ignored 2 more questions on the subject during a campaign stop outside of Columbus, Ohio. Now, when your running mate is a guy who believes the same thing as the rape-mumbling Senate candidates Richard Murdoch and Todd Akin, not only do you have to ignore press questions about that policy, but you cannot put your running mate in a position where he's maybe going to have to answer questions about that. Not with 12 days left. You need to send that guy to Alabama. You need to send him to Glenn Beckville. So Paul Ryan has been essentially hidden on the only talk to the far right fringe of the base tour. Mitt Romney himself picked up the pace a little bit from yesterday when he had a very slow day. Today, Mr. Romney had 3 separate campaign stops, all in Ohio. The real story in terms of campaign ambition right now, though, continues to be President Obama himself, who right now is finishing up a 48-hour overnight nap on the plane 8-state campaign marathon.
We are pulling an all-nighter. No sleep. And if you're not going to sleep, you might as well be in Vegas.
That was President Obama at around 1 a.m. Eastern time in Las Vegas last night. 1 a.m. And then by 7 this morning, there he was in Tampa, Florida, delivering Krispy Kreme donuts to some local firefighters, ultimately. A few hours after that, there he was in Richmond, Virginia, firing up look at the size of the crowd. An estimated crowd of 15,000 people who turned out on a Thursday afternoon in Richmond, Virginia to hear him speak. The president's final campaign appearance of the day came just a short time ago in Cleveland, Ohio. And once this swing state is done tonight, it's not like this is it for the president in terms of its campaign blitz. The campaign today also announced joint rallies on Monday with President Obama and former President Bill Clinton in Orlando, Florida, in Youngstown, Ohio, and in Prince William County, Virginia. Those will all be on Monday, and then they're apparently going to keep up the sprint from there. In terms of the state of the race right now, we do have new NBC News polling numbers out tonight. The new NBC News Marist poll shows that in the great state of Colorado, the race right now is tied. And in nearby Nevada, President Obama is up by 3 points in the new NBC poll. New polls from the Democratic-leaning group PPP show in Virginia, President Obama leading by 5 points. Same group shows the race in North Carolina to be a tie right now. The right-leaning poll, Rasmussen, also polled Virginia today. They found that in Virginia, it's Mitt Romney who is up by 2 points. Rasmussen also polled Pennsylvania. And again, this is the right-leaning polling from Rasmussen. They found in Pennsylvania that President Obama had a 5-point lead. If you want to start tuning out specific polls right now and just wait for the actual results on election night, I have to tell you, I'll keep reporting the polls, but it is not an irrational way to approach this right now. If you want to start ignoring the poll numbers from here on out, it sort of makes sense. I mean, look at whatever polling makes you feel more informed. But the spoiler alert every day from now until Tuesday the 6th is that the more you look at the polls, the more you can safely come to the conclusion that it is a really close race. And the polls maybe tell you more about the polls than they do about the electorate now. And we will not know until Election Day who is actually going to win. And because of that, the thing that is most worth paying attention to substantively right now, in terms of something that really might shift the race one way or the other, is if there are any material, substantive changes in American politics right now that might get the attention of the people who haven't been persuaded by either candidate so far. Something that will appeal to somebody who sees themselves as right in the middle. Someone who is going to vote or who might be persuaded to vote, but who really doesn't yet have a preference between these two candidates. What is the kind of thing that might make a difference to that kind of American at this point? Who is the kind of person who has the kind of credibility that might appeal to somebody who is right in the middle of the electorate right now and not sure which way they're going to go?